The glass fell before she spoke. That's the part one can't stop replaying. It slipped from her hand, hit the tile, and shattered. This tiny explosion of sound that somehow felt louder than her words ever could have been. She just stood there, eyes wide, hand frozen midair, and for a second I thought she'd confess. You know that moment before a lie is born, when the truth is still begging to be chosen? Yeah, that moment hung between us like a held breath. Then she said it. You're imagining things, Eli. Except I wasn't. I'd seen the reflection, in the kitchen window, faint but undeniable. Her smile. The one she saves for text messages she shouldn't be answering. A smile I used to earn, now borrowed by someone else. She bent down to pick up the shards, avoiding my eyes. One tiny piece caught the light, slicing a bright line across her cheekbone. She didn't even flinch when it cut her finger. Just kept collecting the pieces like the motion itself could erase what had just happened. I wanted to help, to reach out, but I didn't move. I watched her instead, the calm precision, the silence, the way she didn't look at me. It was all choreography. This wasn't panic, it was practice. I think that's when the floor fell out from under me. People talk about heartbreak like it's loud, yelling, slamming doors, broken plates. But for me, it was quiet. So quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, her breathing uneven as she whispered, "It's fine. It's fine. It's just a glass." But we both knew it wasn't. That glass was the first thing to fall, not the last. Later that night, I heard her on the porch, the soft buzz of her phone lighting up again. I didn't need to see the name. I already knew. You can feel the difference between a message from a friend and one that makes someone's pulse jump. I stood behind the door, hand on the knob, not brave enough to open it. I'm not the kind of man who storms out demanding answers. I'm the kind who listens through walls and calls it patience. And when she gently said no the next morning, when I finally asked the question that had been burning holes in my throat, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled through the pain, stepped over the memory of that broken glass, and walked away. For good. The air in the house changed after I walked out. Or maybe it was me who changed, and the house just noticed. I didn't go far. Just sat in my car with the door half open, listening to the wind tug at the trees like it was trying to warn me of something I still hadn't seen clearly. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have shoes on. I just drove to the gas station at the edge of town and sat in the parking lot for almost an hour, watching strangers exist like nothing in their world had collapsed that morning. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought that moment, her no, so soft and final, would break the dam. But nothing came out. Just this heavy, sticky stillness. Like grief had been poured into me, but hadn't learned how to move yet. I came back home that night, stupidly thinking maybe she'd be asleep. I could avoid her. Maybe pretend we were still orbiting the same life. But the lights were on. She was on the couch, laptop open, wine glass in hand, like nothing had changed. The broken glass from that morning was gone, not just swept, gone, as if it had never existed. I don't know why that bothered me so much. It was just a glass, but it felt like she'd erased the evidence. She looked up when I walked in, but didn't say anything. "No, I'm glad you came back." "No, do you want to talk?" Just a polite nod, like I was a neighbor borrowing sugar. I went upstairs without a word, heart burning, jaw tight, stomach rotting. That's when I heard it. She wasn't alone in the call. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I swear. I just wanted to grab some clothes and sleep in the guest room. But I passed by the vent in the hallway and heard her voice drifting up from the living room, muffled but clear enough. "He left this morning." "Yeah, just like we said he would." A pause. Then the voice that answered her. Male. Low. Confident. I don't know what I expected. Some sleazy teenager? A regretful ex? No. This voice was older. Measured. Not someone chasing thrills. Someone who planned. He said, "Told you he wouldn't fight. He never does." I froze. There's a difference between suspicion and confirmation. Between doubt and disaster. I'd been living in that limbo for weeks. Guessing, analyzing, convincing myself I might be wrong. But that voice snapped the wires. I didn't just feel betrayed. I heard it happen. She laughed. A soft one. Familiar. The kind I hadn't heard in months. The kind she used to use when we were still us. I backed away from the vent like it burned me. The guest room smelled like paint and old promises. It was the room we were supposed to turn into a nursery. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, staring at the blank wall. My phone buzzed, a message from her. Just 5 words. You okay up there, Eli? She knew. She always knew when I was close to unraveling. I didn't respond. I didn't go back down. I sat there wondering how long this had been going on. Who that man was. How she could smile through this wreckage. And then I remembered something. A name. I'd heard it once. A few months ago. She'd let it slip while talking about a client from out of town. Said his name was Jonas, and he asked too many questions. She had smiled then, too. Jonas. That was the voice. The name I wasn't supposed to hear. Sleep didn't come. I wasn't even expecting it to. The guest bed might as well have been a slab of concrete, and every time I closed my eyes, I heard that man's voice echoing through my skull. He never fights. Like I was some weak, predictable character in a story they'd already written the ending to. And maybe I was. By 5 a.m., I was still lying there, fully clothed, eyes burning, listening to the creaks of the house. The floorboard outside our bedroom squeaked, the one I've been meaning to fix for 4 months. I counted her steps. She moved quietly, but not like someone trying to be stealthy, more like someone who had nothing left to hide. When the front door clicked shut, I sat up fast. She was gone before sunrise. That wasn't normal. Delia didn't leave early. She was the kind of person who hit snooze 5 times and complained about having to be anywhere before 10 a.m. But today, she was out before the sun. No note. No text. Not even a lie. And that's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened her office drawer. I didn't go looking for secrets. I just wanted something. Anything. To make me feel like I wasn't going crazy. Some proof that my instincts hadn't rotted from paranoia. I told myself I'd open one drawer. Just one. If it was empty, I'd stop. It wasn't empty. Inside, tucked beneath a tangle of charging cables and a broken Fitbit, was a red envelope. Thick. No return address. I opened it. It was a printed receipt. Hotel. Downtown. 2 weeks ago. 1 night. 1 king bed. Paid in cash. I turned it over. On the back was a handwritten note. Just 2 words. Stay longer. Jay? I don't remember sitting down, but I must have, because when I looked up again, my elbows were on my knees and my hands were trembling like I'd been hit by something. I stared at the receipt until the ink blurred. That was the same weekend she said she was at her sister's. I had gone to a hardware store that Saturday, bought new hinges for the pantry, spent the evening eating leftovers in front of a muted documentary about lighthouses. I remember texting her a picture of fork sitting in the sink with a cereal box. She'd replied, haha, classic fork. She was in a hotel with Jonas while I was microwaving 3-day-old chili and wondering if she missed me. I should have been furious. Should have punched a wall or screamed into a pillow or thrown the receipt into the fireplace. But all I felt was stupid. Embarrassingly, deeply stupid. Like the punchline of a cruel joke I hadn't realized was even being told. I sat there for nearly an hour, thinking, not about revenge. I'm not that guy. I wouldn't even know where to start. No, I thought about the moments. The micro-decisions. All the forks in the road where she could have chosen me and didn't. And how I didn't even notice. When she got back later that morning, she was holding a coffee cup and humming again. Same song as last week. Something soft, almost untraceable. She didn't look surprised to see me up. Just handed me a coffee like we were still pretending. I took it. I even said thank you. Because that's who I am, right? The man who never fights. I didn't drink the coffee she handed me. I waited until she went upstairs, then poured it down the sink and watched it swirl like a slow, brown cyclone, wondering if there was any part of her that even noticed I didn't trust her anymore. Or if she'd ever cared that I once trusted her with everything. I know that sounds dramatic, but when you've spent over a decade building a life around one person, and suddenly every word they say starts sounding like dialogue written for someone else, it messes with your sense of reality. That evening, I drove to the hotel. It was impulsive, irrational, probably, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to see it. Not the room. That part was gone, erased, cleaned and reset for the next couple with secrets and alibis. But I wanted to see the front desk, the lobby, the security cameras. I wanted something physical to attach the betrayal to. Something to make it real, like a crime scene marked with tape. I stood outside for 10 minutes before walking in. The place was quiet, upscale, but not flashy. Marble floors, fresh orchids in glass vases, that signature scent they pump into the air, something floral and sterile. I went to the front desk, pretending to scroll my phone like I was looking for a confirmation number. Then I saw him. Jonas. I didn't know it was him at first. I mean, I'd never seen the guy, only heard that voice. But something about the way he walked through the lobby like he owned the oxygen, it triggered something instinctive in me. A threat response. He was tall, maybe late 40s, expensive coat slung over one shoulder like it had never seen rain. He was laughing, talking to someone on the phone, too loud for the quietness of the space. And then he said it. Yeah, Delia's got it handled. He won't do anything. He's a spectator. That word hit me in the chest like a dart. Spectator. I ducked behind a pillar, heart racing, hands sweating like I'd been caught shoplifting from my own life. He didn't see me. Walked right past, out the doors, into a sleek black sedan that was already waiting for him. The driver nodded. The car slid away. I stood there for several minutes, pulse in my ears, trying to understand what I'd just heard. Delia's got it handled? What was there to handle? And he won't do anything. Was that what they thought of me? That I was just going to sit in my house and rot while they planned whatever this was? I wanted to scream, but instead, I went back to the desk. I leaned in, used the same voice I use with clients when I need them to trust my opinion about stare angle tolerances. Calm. Respectable. Hi, I said. I'm supposed to meet someone here later, Jonas. Tall guy, nice coat. I think he just walked out. Do you know if he's staying here again tonight? The clerk barely glanced up. Sorry, we can't give out guest information. Of course. I knew that. I just nodded like I understood and turned to leave, but not before catching sight of something behind the desk. A clipboard with housekeeping notes. One entry caught my eye. Room 312. Hold request from J.S. for 3 consecutive Mondays. Mondays. The day she always said she had back-to-back client reviews and worked late. The days she came home smelling different, eyes too bright, guilt worn down into confidence. I drove home in silence. I didn't even put on music. My thoughts were too loud for anything else. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller somehow, like it had shrunk to reflect the truth inside it. Delia was in the backyard when I came in, pretending to weed the garden she hadn't touched in months. She looked up, surprised to see me home early. You're back, she said. I smiled. Yeah, thought I'd beat traffic. She nodded, lips twitching toward a smile she didn't finish. Then she looked down again, hands back in the dirt like she was burying evidence. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked her phone. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. She'd changed the passcode again. I didn't sleep that night, and I'm starting to wonder if I ever truly will again. Not the kind of sleep that lets your brain settle. My body might shut down for a few hours, but my mind keeps pacing like a man trapped in a room with no doors. The passcode on her phone was just the final punctuation mark in a sentence I'd been reading with dread for weeks. She didn't trust me anymore, or more likely, she didn't care to pretend. The next morning, she left earlier than usual. She said something vague about a supplier meeting, and I just nodded. I watched her walk out the door in those boots she only wears when she wants to feel taller. She didn't kiss me goodbye. That used to be a daily ritual, even when we fought. A forehead kiss. A tired smile. Something. But now she just walked away, like I was another piece of furniture in the house she was slowly abandoning. After she left, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what to do next. I didn't want to keep snooping. I didn't want to become this version of myself. This shadow of a man picking through scraps of someone else's secrets. But what choice did I have? She wasn't going to tell me the truth, and I wasn't ready to confront her without all the pieces. I needed clarity, not just accusations. That's when I remembered her old laptop. The one she used to work from home before her company issued her a new one. She hadn't touched it in months. It was in the closet under a pile of donation clothes she kept saying she'd take to Goodwill. I dug it out, dusted it off, and powered it on. Miraculously, it still booted. No password change. No encryption. Just the familiar desktop background of a beach in Greece we never visited. I opened her email app. Most of the inbox had been cleaned out, just generic newsletters and promotional garbage. But she'd forgotten something, the trash folder. There, buried between a Sephora promo and a team lunch update, was an email thread titled Monday confirmed. It was a forwarded chain, the original sender listed only as Jonas. Consulting at, and the body was chillingly simple. I'll be there. Same time. Same rules. Do not use our names in any messages. Keep your phone clean. Paper only. Paper only. Who writes that in 2025? The reply from Delia was even shorter. Understood. Everything in place. He's still unaware. I sat back, the laptop suddenly feeling radioactive in my hands. He's still unaware. Not he suspects. Not I think he knows. Still unaware. That meant there was a timeline. A plan. An expectation that eventually, I'd find out. But too late for it to matter. That wasn't the language of someone having an affair. That was the language of someone orchestrating something. I copied the thread, emailed it to myself, then immediately deleted the trace from the machine. My hands were shaking again, but this time not from heartbreak, from something colder. From fear. Because now this wasn't just about betrayal. This wasn't about love, or loss, or broken marriage vows. This was starting to feel like a setup. I went back to the guest room, opened the closet, and pulled out the box we kept our tax records in. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe inconsistencies, maybe hidden bank accounts, something to explain the why. I rifled through papers until I hit something unexpected. A thick manila envelope with no label, shoved between 2 years of mortgage statements. Inside were printed documents. Legal forms. A property transfer agreement, not ours. Another name I didn't recognize. But Delia's signature was on it. And stapled to the back was a photo. A printed, grainy photo of me, sitting outside a diner with my coworker Claire. We'd had lunch 2 weeks ago to go over design revisions. I remember it clearly because I paid, and she made fun of me for tipping 30%. That photo was taken from across the street, which meant someone had been watching me, not the other way around. I sat in the car outside Claire's apartment for almost 10 minutes before I worked up the nerve to go inside. I had texted her once. Can we talk? In person. She replied instantly. Sure. Everything okay? I didn't answer that. I didn't know how to. Because nothing was okay, and I had no idea what she knew or didn't know. I just knew that someone had taken a picture of us at lunch and tucked it into a file in my own house like it was evidence in a case I didn't know I was on trial for. She lived in a modest duplex with a yellow front door and wind chimes that sounded too cheerful for what I was walking into. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see my face. Genuinely surprised, not like Delia's performative shock that had started to wear thin. Claire had her hair up in a messy knot, glasses on, and she was holding a mug with the words, "Not today, Satan" on it. The irony hit me square in the chest. Hey, she said cautiously. You okay? You look not okay. I didn't waste time. Someone's been watching us. Her smile dropped like a curtain. What? Someone took a photo of us. Outside the diner. 2 weeks ago. From across the street. She stepped aside without another word, letting me in. I walked past her into the living room, heart thudding. Claire wasn't just my coworker. She was one of the only people left who still asked me how I was doing and actually waited for the answer. And if Delia was building a narrative, if she was trying to spin something, it made sense to weaponize even that friendship. I found it, I said, in a folder, with legal documents. Property stuff. Delia signed something I don't understand. Claire sat down slowly. Wait, back up. You're telling me someone is surveilling you? No. Us. Me and you. That lunch. There's a photo. Her eyes narrowed. Do you think it was Delia? I nodded. Or Jonas. Or both. She went quiet. Too quiet. And then, without meeting my eyes, she said, Eli, there's something I didn't tell you. I froze. My stomach dropped. This was it. This was the betrayal within the betrayal. My brain ran through every scenario. Was Claire in on it? Was she working with Delia? Had this whole thing, the lunches, the empathy, the advice, just been some elaborate manipulation? But then she looked at me, and her face wasn't guilty. It was scared. 3 months ago, she said, someone came to my office. He said he was from Delia's legal team, that she was preparing to file separation paperwork, and that things might get messy. He said if I valued my reputation, I should be careful about being seen in public with you. I blinked. Wait, what? I thought it was weird, she continued. But he knew my name, my position, even my mother's address. He said Delia had proof that you and I were having an affair, that she wasn't going to make it public unless I backed off. My blood ran cold. But we're not. I know. Claire snapped, voice cracking. That's why I didn't tell you. I figured she was bluffing. But then you kept asking me to lunch, and I thought, okay, maybe if we just stay low-key. I sat down hard on the armrest of her couch. The room was spinning. She was building a case. Not against Jonas. Against me. I had spent the last month thinking I was the one uncovering her betrayal, when in reality, I was the patsy, the red herring, the husband too slow to realize he wasn't the one sneaking around. He was the alibi, the fallback, the man painted as insecure, possibly unstable, maybe even delusional. If it went to court, if she filed, if she produced that photo, emails taken out of context, schedules rearranged to create shadows where there were none, she could bury me. Legally, financially, socially. All while Jonas stood in the background with clean hands and a smug smile. I felt the bottom fall out beneath my feet. Claire leaned forward. You need to lawyer up, Eli? Like today? This isn't just infidelity. This is strategy. I thought I was paranoid, I said quietly. You're not paranoid, she said. You're being hunted. The sentence landed with more weight than I could process. I stood, hands shaking, head pounding, thoughts racing like wildfire through a collapsing forest. Delia wasn't just leaving me. She was erasing me. I didn't go home after I left Claire's apartment. I drove. No music. No destination. Just 4 hours of empty roads, a stale protein bar, and a slow-burning panic that refused to let go of my chest. Every time I pulled up to a red light, I caught myself checking the mirrors too often, convinced someone was following me, not just because I was unraveling, but because now I knew I wasn't imagining things. Delia wasn't just preparing to leave. She was preparing to win. It's a strange feeling when you start doubting your entire marriage and your own memory at the same time. I started thinking back to small things, dinner receipts that didn't match her stories. Nights, she said she was working late, but I heard music when I called. Even her perfume had changed, subtly, like she was trying on a new identity and had no intention of bringing the old one with her. By the time I pulled into the darkened lot of a 24-hour copy shop, I realized I had nowhere else to go. I couldn't go back to the house, not with her there, not with the laptop tucked back into the closet like nothing had happened. And I didn't want to go back to Claire's. She meant well, but if Delia was building a narrative, I couldn't hand her more ammunition. I needed to be alone, invisible. But more than that, I needed leverage. So I opened my email. There was one address I hadn't tried yet. The printer contact on the bottom of the property documents I'd found in that manila envelope. Tri-source document solutions. Small time. Local. Probably didn't expect to be dragged into a domestic apocalypse. I sent a vague message. Hi. I believe a document was printed through your service under the name Delia Winslow. I need confirmation of who authorized it and what was submitted, as it may have involved me without consent. Thanks. Eli Winslow. I didn't expect a response. Definitely not at 1:42 a.m. But 6 minutes later, one arrived. Mr. Winslow, I'm not supposed to share client materials without authorization, but you're listed as a secondary signee on the package metadata. I'm attaching a copy of the intake scans submitted for printing per our compliance policy. Let me know if there's a mistake on file. TSD admin. There were 5 attachments. PDFs. I downloaded them with shaking hands, parked under a flickering street lamp in the copy shop lot, and opened the first one. It wasn't the property deed. It was a photo of me. Black and white. Taken from a low angle. Not recent. Not from this year. I stared at it, breath frozen. It was me, but not here, not in this city. I recognized the background. It was a public park I used to live near 8 years ago, when Delia and I had first moved in together before we were married. My hands went cold. I clicked the next file. Another photo. This one from inside a grocery store. I had a basket in hand. I was buying soup and cold medicine. I remember this day because Delia had a fever and begged me to get that disgusting purple cough syrup she liked. Another file. This time a printout of a lease application. My name was on it, but I never submitted it. The phone number listed wasn't mine. The emergency contact was someone named Jillian, a name I didn't recognize. The final file was the worst. It was a scanned letter, handwritten. Sloppy, desperate handwriting. It read, I can't do this anymore. I love her, but she scares me sometimes. She watches everything. She reads my messages. I think she's tracking me. If anything happens, someone needs to ask about what happened in Vermont. I stared at the signature for a long time. That wasn't my handwriting, but it was signed with my name. I couldn't feel my hands anymore. I don't even remember leaving the parking lot or driving to the motel. I just remember checking into a room that smelled like mold and denial, collapsing onto the bed fully clothed, and wondering what the hell had happened in Vermont. Because I've never been to Vermont. Not once in my entire life. I didn't sleep that night in the motel. Not even for a minute. I sat up against the headboard in that dim, yellow-stained room, staring at the wall like it owed me answers. I had my laptop open, rereading the files over and over, trying to understand what they meant, why someone would fabricate a letter with my name, use my likeness, embed me in a story I hadn't lived. And that last line haunted me. Ask about what happened in Vermont. I'd never set foot in Vermont. I didn't even know anyone who lived there. So how the hell was I being linked to an event, something dark enough to be whispered about in secret documents, in a place I'd never been? At 6:12 a.m., I called a friend. Not Claire. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Evan. We'd been college roommates, lost touch after I got married, but he'd gone into private investigations, mostly insurance fraud and corporate leaks. I'd helped him design his home staircase as a wedding gift. I told him everything. Not the emotional parts, just the facts. The emails, the files, the photograph, the fake lease, the handwriting that wasn't mine. And that name, Jillian. He was quiet for a long time before finally saying, "You're in something bigger than an affair, Eli. You were a cover, a front, and maybe a fallback plan if it all fell apart." I asked what he meant. Identity laundering, he said. It's rare, complicated. But if someone smart enough has access to your details, your behaviors, your routines, and they've been collecting them for years, they can create a shell version of you and plant it where they need it. I didn't understand until he said this. Your wife didn't just plan to leave you. She planned to use you as a legal firewall, maybe even as a fallback scapegoat. That word echoed like a gunshot, scapegoat. But then Evan gave me the first real light I'd seen in weeks. She messed up though, he said. She got greedy. Sloppy. You've got documents with metadata, timestamps, IP logs. If those are real, you can prove forgery. If she's been operating under your name without your knowledge, especially across state lines, she's committed federal crimes. That was the moment something changed. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't confused. I was angry. But more than that, I was ready. Evan connected me with someone, a lawyer who specialized in digital fraud and legal manipulation. She took one look at the files and said, "This isn't an affair. This is a ghost operation gone wrong. And you were the ghost." We worked fast, quietly. She helped me file a protective notice on my identity, trigger a review of financial accounts, and secure my digital footprint. Meanwhile, Evan tracked down Jillian. She wasn't a mistress. She was a name Delia had used before, in another state, under a different story. A paper trail of half-finished lies and rented lives. And Vermont. It turned out there was a property there. One Delia had purchased under a business alias, later transferred, quietly, into my name. I would have found out eventually, probably during a tax audit or when the mortgage defaulted. And when I did, I would have been holding the bag, legally, while she and Jonas vanished into whatever life they thought they deserved. But they didn't get to vanish, because I beat them to it. I filed first. Everything. I took the evidence to the authorities. My lawyer handled the strategy, and I made sure it wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. About reclaiming the identity I didn't know I was at risk of losing. And when the subpoenas hit her inbox, Delia cracked. Hard. Jonas disappeared. She stayed, not because she wanted to, but because the net was already closing in. But here's the part one didn't expect. I wasn't broken. I thought I would be. I thought uncovering all this, all the lies, the layers, the manipulation, would hollow me out. But it didn't. Because I realized something while watching the dust settle. The worst thing she ever did wasn't cheating on me. It was convincing me I was too weak to notice, too passive to matter, too small to fight back. But I did. I fought back. I came out the other side with bruises, yeah, with trust issues and court dates and nights where I still hear her voice in my head. But I also came out with clarity, with proof, with a version of myself I never thought I'd meet. One who didn't just smile through the pain and walk away, but one who walked back, took a stand, and refused to be the decoy in someone else's story. The divorce finalized last week. I didn't ask for anything. Didn't want the house, or the car, or some poetic apology letter. I just wanted my name back. And I got it. Today, I opened a clean notebook. First page. No quotes. No metaphors. Just one sentence, written in my own handwriting. The light at the end wasn't her. It was me.